shushu boo. Booty ba mama iti shushu boo. Mama iti shushu ma iti boo boo shoo. Okay, shoot.
That's the most interesting beginning to any of the interviews we've had thus far. Thank you.
I could go on, but I won't. You want to ask questions?
All right, and I appreciate you being willing to spend some time with us today to answer some questions that will help us to put together the decennial cultural plan for Bowen Island. So my first question for you is to tell us a bit about what you do for a living and for recreation, including any types of artistic and cultural activities that you participate in. If we can get that in within about 5 minutes, because I know you're involved in just about everything.
Okay, so I've been a full-time artist all my life. Never had a day job. Well, except when I had kids. That's
a day job.
That was a real day job.
Yep.
Wasn't doing too much then. And so what I've done, so I brought all these things together because I forget what I do because I'm doing so many things and I finish one and I go on to the next. And so I just put everything out here so I would remember. So
Great.
I write my own songs and I record them. And I have got 5 CDs of these songs. And interestingly enough, several of them are very connected to Bowen. Like this one, Love Songs of Bowen Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also this one, Dancing with the Crone, which I did with Corbin Keep, just like within 9 months of moving to Bowen Island, I birthed this first baby.
Great.
And Corbin on cello, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is there another one? Well, Buff Allen is on a couple of them, this Rescue Joy one. And Buff's on this Deep Fun one, too. And this was recorded at Shell Wrench's recording studio.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So it's like, when I started taking this stuff out, I saw how many Bowen connections there were. Mm-hmm. And this is, I have my songs on a lot of compilation CDs. This is from Taiwan by this High Note International Media Corporation. It's called Les Parfums de Paris. And it's just women singing in French all over the world. And they did 4 compilation CDs, and I'm on all of them.
Terrific.
Which is really fun. So that's the musical part, and I play piano and I sing. I have a Bachelor of Music. Mm-hmm. And then I started doing musical theater. And I did, I wrote a show about Edith Piaf and did it first in 1978 at Vancouver City Stage, and then toured it most parts of Canada, and then decided to go to law school. So anyway, that didn't last very long. And so then I started writing. Mm-hmm. So I started writing plays because I'd been in theater, right? So I wrote quite a few plays for different theater companies, including Lunchbox Theater in Calgary and Opera Theater of Alberta. I'd written a few shows for them. Mm-hmm. And then one of the ideas I had for them, the company folded, so I got this idea. I had this idea called The Song Spinner. And so I just went and saw the people. I had done some television as well and some film. Mm-hmm. So I went and said, I've got this idea for a place where they don't allow a mythical land where they don't allow people to make music. So anyway, so I wrote the screenplay. Took 5 years to find the funding. And what really helped to get it funded is that they said, write a novel about it. And I said, I don't know how to write a novel. I'm a dramatist. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I wrote the novel and it was published first. And then the the screenplay was produced by Showtime in the U.S. It was nominated for 3 Emmy Awards, including Best Writing. Mm-hmm. And I won Kate Blaise Award. So I got pea soup caught in my throat, I think. So then but coming to Bowen 17 years ago, I think that's when it was, yeah. And meeting Corbin, and then Shoot moved, and it was like this musical thing really started to increase me because I'd had done a lot of solo and band stuff when I lived in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And so I did a lot of the music thing and did a lot of concerts here on Bowen. And then I started writing. And so this is a real big Bowen connection. It's called Becoming Intimate with the Earth. And it was published by an American publishing company.
And it's your first nonfiction?
My first nonfiction. Although I had done some journalism before. Like I was writing everything. I was writing manuals for the Alberta Arts Council. I was writing everything.
Okay.
And so this one, I interviewed a lot of people on Bowen. And it was just a great thing to do. And then I get invited to these science conferences to give papers on engaged cosmology, because when I did the musical about Bowen Island in 2005 and 2006, which we did this book about it, and this was a whole 3-day festival, and the musical was part of it.
Right.
And I started the musical, It Takes a Village to Bring to Life the History of Our Island Community. So we organized the festival we had everything. We had nature hikes. We had
What year was that? Do you know?
2005 and 2006.
Great.
And it was a really exciting thing to do. It was a very difficult thing to do because I'd only lived here for a few years, and there was a lot of, who does she think she is?
Right.
Right? What does she know about Bowen? I spent a lot of time at the archives, thanks to Dorothy, who I loved. And some people got involved, and it was great, and a lot of work. And interestingly enough, it was developers who were willing to open up their purses to support.
Great.
We also got money from BC Arts Council. So that was great fun to do. And so the beginning of the musical, as I was saying, was about, it's like people asked me when I wrote the musical, they said, well, how far back are you going to start? Meaning, was I going to start with the Squamish Nation? And I said, right from the very beginning. 13.7 billion years ago, the birth of the universe, right? So when scientists found out, and science educators found out about this, they got real excited that somebody was taking the scientific story of the universe and having it be made accessible to people. So I didn't use I had the science down, and I'd studied with Brian Swim, who wrote the universe story with Thomas Berry. But for me, it was in the beginning was the dark silence, right? And then out comes all this stuff. So it was really fun. And so then I got invited to these science conferences to write about engaged cosmology. So I would give papers and meet all these really smart people. It was very intimidating. And then this was another one. Oh, this presentation was called Sing 2 Songs and Call Me in the Morning. And it was all about the healing, the science of music and everything.
Right.
So I've had good fun with that. And then I got invited to an evolutionary conference in what was it called? Someplace in California, anyway. And so there, out of that came this idea to write. I'm collaborating on a musical for kids called Earth Dreaming, and it's for a theater company in Vancouver that tours elementary schools. So the kids are going to get the universe story. And the most fascinating thing about this is that we, when this collaborator and I, who lives in Vancouver, started working together, and I said, okay, we're going to have 3 characters. We're going to have a musician, mostly doing percussion, and we're going to have a man and a woman, and the woman's going to be Aboriginal, and tell it, and with her vision of what the world is like, which is much bigger than what we see. And the guy's going to be kind of a science nerd, and so we'll get the science. And so they start off quite apart from each other, and then they start to see the commonalities, and so it's going to be so
turtles all the way down.
Yeah, so it's going to be really fun. It's already being really a lot of fun to work on.
That's great.
So I also give workshops based on this book, Becoming Intimate with the Earth, and I got an email from, there's a woman called Gertie who organizes these workshops for me. She belongs to a group called Earth Literacies. And they read my book and they got all excited and said, would you give workshops? And I said, sure.
Great.
So I got an email from this woman who took the last workshop I did in November in Vancouver at Van Dusen Gardens. And she said, the workshop was life-changing.
Great.
She ended up feeling brave enough to apply for this job, which she got. And she's now doing environmental law with Indigenous people and stories, and so I get so excited. That's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to change people. It's not just supposed to please them or make them happy. Although if it's entertaining, if the byproduct, it could be entertaining, but art is about changing people. It's
interesting because that's very consistent with T.S. Eliot's famous statement about the role of the artist.
What does he say?
He says the role of the artist is that you need to simultaneously teach them something new, show them something new perspective, new idea, and you have to entertain them. So you have to touch their head
Mind
and
the
their heart at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you don't do both, it's not art.
No, it's either something didactic or
Right.
something fluffy.
Exactly.
Either
which we have a lot of in our society
We
today.
do. Yeah, so, I guess what I do is I take... we'll just let that phone go.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't get it.
All right.
So I take things, like I'm very adventurous as far as exploring new ideas and new ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And I always see, it doesn't matter what group I'm in, I always see it differently, which is, I guess that's the role of the artist, is to see it differently. And so what I like to do is to take what we already know and what we're starting to know and reframe it. And so at one point, because I was feeling like I really needed to do what I'm talking about. Oh, I should have turned the answer machine off.
Don't worry about it.
So it's like my job was to rename, reframe. What's the other one?
Yeah.
Reclaim. That's what I did with Dancing with the Crone, right? Was reclaim this word crone, which everybody's... So
right.
Reclaim, rename, reframe without shame.
That's great. Very poetic.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have to move us on,
Okay.
or this could be the longest interview of the entire...
Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
fine. You've got a lot to say on that. You're involved in a lot of things. So I'm going to put you on the spot now to come up with one story of all of the thousands of stories that you have told and could tell about Bowen. One story of one of your most memorable cultural or artistic experiences on Bowen Island, either as a producer or as an audience member.
Well, it has to be the festival, the Voices and Sound Festival in 2005 and 2006, because that was just the most extraordinary thing to do in your new home.
Right.
To tell the story. And it was like we had a whole mandate for it. And it was to honor the past and to dream the future.
Right.
And to tell the story, not just of the people, because, the archives does a good job of collecting all the people stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But their book, Reflections, is all about the people. There's only 2 animals in it. They're both trophies.
Right.
So, I wanted the rocks to speak, the plants to speak, everything. And we did a boat cruise around Bowen Island, and Sue Ellen did a interpretive thing. Marie Journet did the rock.
Oh, yeah.
Hike down to Cape Ranger Curtis. That was so great. So you get to learn the story of all of it.
Yeah. Have you ever taken Bob Turner's tour?
No,
he does once a year. You need to.
I need to do that. Yeah.
See, he talks about what the rock formations that you see on the sides.
Oh,
of
the boat tour. Yeah, I've done that. Yes,
Yeah.
I have done that. But I need to do it again just to get all that information. So that was the most extraordinary thing, and it was hard work. It was hard work finding the funding, and it was shoestring budget. Like we really.
Right. Not like most things on Bowen. There's lots of money.
I know. But a lot of good-hearted people wanted to get involved, including Ross Carter, who taught me how to chair a meeting. And sometimes I was chairing like 8, 9, 10 meetings a week. For somebody who doesn't like meetings, it was really something.
Yep. And
approaching all the different groups on Bowen to say, hi, I want to write this musical about Bowen. I want to organize this festival. So a lot of good people came on board. And I had some friends come from Vancouver. And he's a very interesting guy. And he said to me, Pauline, you have transformed Bowen Island into an altar.
Oh, that's great.
And many people came to pray. It's like, I just got all shivery when he said that to me, because that's really, I wanted people to see the land as sacred, to see it as the relationships between people and the land is sacred, right? And so that has to be the number one. And then the first year, I really tried to get the Squamish Nation to come, because their voices were here first. It was called Voices and Sound, and their voices were here first, right?
Right.
So I emailed, I phoned, nobody got back to me. So the next year, and then I got too busy to do anything else. So the next year, I emailed, the same thing happened. I said, I don't drive, right? So I said, Paul, take me down to the band office. So we went to the band office in North Vancouver, and Wendy Harry was on the desk, and she said, oh, didn't anybody get back to you? Anyway, she said, I'll talk to everybody. So William Nahaney came, big barrel-chested, oh, gross, it was like, oh, great spirit, whose voice I hear in the wind. That Chief Dan George thing was just like, it was so great. And he brought those little dancers with him in their paddle dresses. And it was one day. And then the next day, the Squamish Seagoing Canoe family came in their cedar dugout canoe and their regalia. And they did storytelling. And it was just terrific. It was the most incredible experience because there were so many things coming together. We had a baseball game. Okay, so we had the baseball people involved. We had the old farts, the old storytellers involved. We had the chamber involved. They did the wild salmon barbecue. The heritage people were involved. They did an orchard picnic, you know.
Yeah.
And Paul Houston was there with his big feet and his doing his thing. I mean, it was just so many people came together, and the fact that the Squamish Nation came was even made it more.
That's great.
So that's good, and that's really continued my involvement. Like the book I'm working on right now about house sound, I'm getting very involved with the Squamish Nation,
That's
and
great.
I think it's real important to do some reconciliation.
I've already got my quota of quotes from for this, and we're only at the second question. That's great. But it's interesting that this theme of the importance of partnering comes up again and again and again, and in transition, which, as you know, I'm very much involved in.
Yeah.
That's the latest major thrust, is the fact that if we really want to make a difference, we have to learn how to partner with other groups. And our biggest successes have been when we've done that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. The biggest challenge you face as a professional artist?
Well, because I'm living on Bowen,
Yeah.
isolation.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. Because the kind of work that I do, there are very few people interested in that work.
Mm-hmm.
They're elsewhere. There are a lot of them are in the States, so they invite me down there to give my workshops and things.
Right.
Yeah, isolation. I feel like I love the musicians here, and then I've had some great fun with the musicians here. But the kind of work that I want to do is, especially in the writing and in the partnering. So yeah, that's the most difficult thing for me.
I don't know how to ask you the third question, because I don't think anything holds you back. Our third question is, what's holding you back from participating or attending more activities? I think you're already involved in as many as you possibly can be.
Too many, you know. I'm getting long in the tooth here, and
so are we all.
Well, yeah, but your energy starts to change. Hitting 70 was big. You know,
yeah.
Just like things energetically, things are a little bit different, which is okay. You get smarter and you get to say no to certain things, and yes to still many things.
Will you teach me how to say no?
Yeah,
I've never learned how to do that.
I know.
The consultant in me just...
Your body will tell you. That's what will
true.
happen. Eventually,
Absolutely.
your body will just scream it out.
Yep.
You know that book by Gabor Mate? When the body says no? Well, because I get the Banyan's catalog.
Mm-hmm.
I open it up, and the body says no. I don't need to read the book. God, you know, my body has been saying no, 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 and I'm just going, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
he's a fascinating guy, isn't he? He's and here, talking about substance addiction earlier, he's a guy that acknowledges that he's got one, and he has the most unusual addiction.
Which is? He's
addicted to collecting classical music on vinyl.
Oh, it's not an addiction.
He cannot go past. He spends hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Oh, he's got money. That's not an addiction. I'm sorry. To call that an addiction is really minimizing people who have
his
serious
family
addiction.
And his friends who have, like, he has rooms full of vinyl.
Okay, but he's not losing his job or losing his family because of that. That's
true.
Not an addiction.
All right. Fair
Sorry.
enough.
So
All right. What person or place comes first to mind when you think of arts and culture on Bowen?
the forest. The forest is the major.
More than the ocean. That's interesting that you'd say that.
I spend more time in the forest because I don't swim much. I mean, when I kayaked, I would have said the ocean. But I don't kayak anymore. But when I kayak, like I wrote a lot of my songs when I was in the kayak. I wrote that Salish Sea song when I was paddling. But now that I'm not so, and I don't swim that much, the water's too cold. So I would say now it's the forest. And now that I have this view of Sleeping Woman Mountain, I would say the mountain. The mountain, boy, did that feed me. Just sit in that chair there and...
Has it got another name?
I don't know, but I call it Sleeping Woman Mountain. I don't care what anybody else
All
says.
right, fair enough. So there isn't a person who to you is the kind of icon of arts and culture on Bowen?
Not really. No, because there's so many diverse things. You know, like
Somebody's
arts.
already mentioned your name in that context.
Oh,
but...
really? Because arts is such a big thing. You got
Yeah.
the music, you got the literature, you got the visual, and culture is such a big thing too. And so, I would be hard pressed to name a person.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think most differentiates us culturally from Vancouver?
Small. I mean, really, that's all I can say is small. Small and white. And this is not a good thing. You know, I never chose to live here. I had lived in Vancouver for 1 year very happily near Commercial Drive.
Right.
Loved all the different languages, all the different colors. And then the friend that I was sharing a house with sold it. And I had to find another place.
Right.
And it was Allison Nixon. I met her and I said, I have to move. She said, oh, you belong on Bowen. I don't think so. Because I had done a house sit here. I said, I don't think so. So anyway, she said, oh yeah. She phoned me up the next day with 2 places.
Wow.
And I could afford them. So that's why I came here. And then within a week of moving here, all these songs just started. I'd written songs before, but these songs were just like pouring out of me. They were written on the ceiling and they were just everywhere. So
fantastic.
I would never leave, but I did not choose to come here. I because of that lack of diversity, which has always been, because I've always lived in a city, in a sort of a multicultural area of Toronto, of Montreal, of Edmonton, of Vancouver.
Right. So you're here in spite of rather than because of almost. That's interesting.
But in the sense that the fact that I brought the Squamish Nation here, I mean, we can bring diversity in here if we feel that's what's missing. It's like, oh, you want something different? Then do it. So that's what I did. And I'm going to be organizing a settlers info group, bringing Indigenous people and settlers together here.
Great. So you've been here 17 years.
Yeah.
What has changed the most since you arrived on Bowen?
Well, lots more musicians, which is always welcome. You can never have too many musicians. And lots more traffic. When I used to cross Miller Road, I mean, you could stand there for 5 minutes before a car went by, and now you can't stand there for 5 seconds before a car comes by.
That's because they're selling mangoes there. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah, last weekend, this guy put a note up on the Facebook page.
Oh, I should do
buy sell saying I've got 12 crates of mangoes. I'm going to be selling them tomorrow at noon at corner of Miller and the main road.
Funny.
And apparently there's a whole crowd of people who showed up, and he sold them all out in less than an hour.
That would be the only reason to do Facebook, so to buy mangoes. Were they tall mangoes? Those are the ones I like.
I don't know. They disappeared before I could get there.
But it wasn't just that day. It's every day there's the traffic there. I think that's changed. And you know, I may be wrong about this. It may be how I'm changing. But I thought there was much more crabby divisiveness when I first came, like punch outs.
More than
yeah. I think that's changing. I think there's more willingness to work together, and and I know that when I did the musical in 2005, and Bob Turner was there, and he just loved it. He said he was going to run for council, and he decided he was going to run for mayor because of that. And I
Great.
know people who said they saw the musical and they said it made them decide to live here.
Fantastic.
Because the musical was all about cooperation, and yeah, I think I think it's better actually.
Great.
Yeah.
Are there any artistic or cultural activities you don't already practice? And if so, is there one that you'd like to learn more about?
Well, I would like to learn how to write haiku. I think that would be fun.
All right.
And
there's a lot of interest in restarting the writers' workshops.
oh, please. You know, one thing I have to say, it's like a little bit but there's so much done for visual artists here.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but the musicians are struggling, really struggling. And very often the artists, the visual artists that are represented are hobby artists. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're supporting hobby artists, but are we supporting people, and you know who they are, who are professional musicians and have been trying to make a living, and there is very little support for them. Yeah. So let's do something for the musicians and the writers too. You know, there's a lot of us writers here. And it would be great to have that Writers Festival again. I participated in it, and I did a panel about why we write and the role of the writer. Because I'm really interested in what our role is, you know? It's like, it's okay to make nice pictures and write a nice song, but like, what is your purpose here besides maybe selling it?
So what can you imagine we would do for musicians? They're already professional musicians. What they need is more gigs.
They need more gigs,
so
exactly.
So how do we help them do that? Any thoughts?
You know, one idea I had was, and it came out of this book I did with Samantha Sanderson, who used to live here. She did these gorgeous paintings. And so what she did, and she was kind of like, hadn't painted in a long time, was getting back to it. So I was kind of like her muse. And so I'd say, because she'd phone me up and say, oh, I hate this painting. And so I'd go and have a look at it and say what was good about it and really help her. So, and I said, okay, why don't we do something together that you paint a painting and don't show it to me. And then bring it to me in the evening. I'll put it in my bedroom. I won't look at it. I'll go to sleep. I'll wake up the next morning, and first thing I'll do is look at that painting and write a poem about it. And so that's what I did. And I was very surprised because some of the poems were so funny. Like, I didn't expect them to be funny and kind of a bit juicy, kind of like sexy kind of. Yeah. So anyway, about trees, no less. And so what I guess what I'm getting at is doing a kind of a collaborating thing, so that instead of just having, and so when she showed her paintings at the gallery,
right,
and I stood next to the painting and I read the poem that went with it. So maybe there's a collaboration thing that can happen that Arts Council could sponsor with somebody writing music to the poems. And I've had Corbin Keep, you know, I'm reading something and he does cello to it. I mean, just to think of ways that we can integrate the musicians more.
Great idea.
And that they get paid. Because I know as a musician, I did a lot of volunteer gigs. And that's fine for people who are hobbyists, but professionals should be paid. So that's one thing I would think about. Also, I'd like to learn how to make. We'd have to bring Squamish Nation people here. How to make those cedar baskets that are completely airtight.
Right.
It's incredible, and they wear them on their head, right? And they stay dry. Because I bought one of these so-called waterproof hats from some company. I got soaked, totally soaked.
Right.
You see those Squamish people, and they got these hats on, and they're totally dry.
And I've heard that almost all of that basket wear, that weaving, is done by women.
It has been, but Elroy Baker, who was one of the Squamish Nation people that came in the canoe, he weaved his own, but it was traditionally done by women.
Yeah, fascinating. There's an exhibit at the art gallery in Vancouver, and almost all of the Aboriginal art that's there has underneath it unknown artist.
Yeah.
And it's such a tragedy that
Right.
people collected that stuff. And they didn't really care.
Yeah, exactly.
They lost the story. They lost everything about the individuals who did the work.
Well, I'm trying to do my best with this book about how sound to really to name some of those things. I bought myself a Squamish English dictionary.
Yeah, I've got one of those too. It's great.
It's great, but it's hard too.
You have to take the Where Are My Keys course.
Where Are My Keys?
Yeah.
Oh, who do you take that from?
Ask Chris Corrigan.
Oh.
He'll get you signed up. His friend, who was known as Dennis Rivers.
Oh, Helsilum. He
right.
started, I just sent them some money.
Yeah.
They started this language school.
Yeah.
With
and they use Where Are Your Keys as a key tool for learning it. You got to take that.
And it's a book, or it's a course.
It's a course. You learn basically
online,
no, you learn in person, and all you do. He doesn't even translate any things for you. He just shows you something and says it, and eventually you learn. You associate a particular movement, a particular action, a particular object with saying this thing, and it's the way in which the brain makes sense instead of learning language,
right.
like grammar and spelling.
The way a kid would learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to learn the Squamish language and cedar basket at the same time as learning, and maybe pots. I like Jeannie Sarich has this every Friday. She has, you can go and make some pots with her. Mm-hmm. I think I would like to do that. I'm always just too busy. Darn it. I need to retire so I can do some of these things.
Right. All right. I think we've answered the question of what brought you to Bowen Island. So I'd like to ask you the second part of that question, which is what would you most miss if you had to leave?
I have some very dear friends here.
Mm-hmm.
And
the forest.
I would miss the daily walk in the forest.
Yeah.
And I would miss the lagoon. I love the lagoon. I'm there almost every day. There's always something exciting happening. Oh, there's a witch and pear. Oh, the goslings are happening. Oh,
yeah.
There's seals in the bay. That means the salmon are here. The eagles. We used to have this eagle tree right there, but it fell over. And you always knew when the salmon were coming because the eagle would just sit right at the top of that tree. God,
there's a lot of them here this season.
There
I've never seen as many eagles as I have.
I don't know why they weren't in Brackendale.
Yeah.
Because it was strange. It was very, very strange.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the official bird count because we usually do that every year, but I didn't hear how many eagles.
We need a sign that points people to the lagoon because there are a lot of people who have a few minutes before the ferry leaves and they don't know what to do. So they end up either wandering up and down or in the snug when probably they would be delighted. I always take people down there if we arrive in lots of time for the ferry.
It's one of the reasons why I like living where I do because it's a short walk to the lagoon.
Yeah. All right. Catch all. Any other thoughts about things we should think about in putting together the cultural plan?
Oh, yeah. So there was that question of, any thoughts about creative needs. Okay. I talked a bit about it. I think more opportunities for musicians to perform. Mm-hmm. And more inter-arts activities happening. More that interdisciplinary thing, which I talked about.
Yeah.
And more for writers, too. More for writers to get together. I mean, I know what I write is very different than what other people on the island are writing. But I remember this one woman who used to live just over there on Melmore. And when she lived, she died. But when she lived in Vancouver, she had a monthly salon for artists of any stripe.
Right.
And you just would show up. She did it at her house. Mm-hmm. And you would just show up and talk about what you're doing. Yeah. And why couldn't the Arts Council do that at the gallery once a month?
Sure.
An art salon. People just show up, talk about what they're doing, maybe read what they're doing or play what they're working on, or
open mic for artists of all kinds. Yeah. Or Lieben the Second.
Yeah, without the sex and drugs.
Oh, really? Oh, darn! That was the whole part of the fun of it.
I just talk to Jean Jameson or
Yeah.
one of the Collins sisters about Lieben, it was like, it was a hellhole. It was a hellhole. And
Yeah.
all these writers
It
with
was a
their
pretty ribald place, from what I
with their
understand. Yeah.
young female graduate students, you know,
Yeah.
and the drinking and everything. They were not allowed to participate in that. So,
All right. Unless you've got other thoughts, I think we're done.
yeah, I think so too. This has been really fun.
It has. I'm gonna finish it off, and then I'm gonna do a bit of a debrief with you,
Okay.
if that's okay. So thank you very much for your time this
Thank you. It's
afternoon.
been a pleasure, Dave.
And we'll now take you off the official record.